Hi. In this video, we're going to look at the most common challenges and mistakes we see in IELTS General Training Writing Task 1. So, my goal here is very simple. I want you to clearly see what mistakes people make so that you don't make them. As simple as that. Because once you can recognize these common mistakes, you become aware of them, and that awareness can guide your learning and can guide how you use your study time. We'll go through these issues one by one. Each of them is a very common problem that we see almost every week in student scripts. So let's get started with the first one. One of the most frequent errors we see is not addressing all parts of the task. The prompt typically has 3 bullet points, so this shouldn't really be happening. It's not like there's 15 of them. You need to treat these bullet points as a checklist and make sure you cover all of them. Neglecting one point or writing much less about one and much more about the others will definitely bring your task achievement score down. This is especially important if you're aiming for band 7, 8, or 9. You cannot write two big paragraphs for the first 2 points and then just one sentence for the last one. That's just not going to work, and it's not going beyond band 6. Also, pay attention to plurals. If a bullet point uses a plural noun, it's there for a reason. If it says describe other household duties, mentioning just one is not enough. Or if it says describe problems, one problem is not enough. And remember, sometimes one bullet point contains two tasks. For example, describe the problem and the reasons. That means you must do both, obviously. After you finish writing your letter, go back to the task and check each point one by one. Treat the task exactly like a checklist. Another very common issue is inappropriate greetings and sign offs, or sometimes missing them completely. A greeting means saying hello to the person you're writing to. Things like dear sir, dear madam, dear John, depending on the situation. And once you finish the letter, there must be a sign off. Yours faithfully, yours sincerely, kind regards, best regards, cheers, whatever. Again, depending on the situation. You cannot skip this. A greeting and a sign off are a required part of an email or letter, and leaving them out will obviously affect your score. The next common problem is tone mismatch, using the wrong tone or switching tones throughout the letter. This is a major issue. It's also something that many of my students are completely unaware of. It's usually handled well by band 7, 8, and 9 candidates, but it's also something that very often prevents band 6 test takers from finally moving up to band 7. In IELTS General Training Task 1, you're always writing in one of three tones: formal, semi formal, or informal. If you start formal, the letter must be formal from beginning to end. You cannot write something like, hi, sir, I'm writing to inform you. Like, hi and sir do not go together. It's either dear sir or hi, Abdullah. The rule is simple. If you start formal, stay formal. If you start informal, stay informal. If you start semi-formal, then stay semi-formal all the way to the sign off. This is closely related to your lexical range. That is how flexible you are with your vocabulary. If you cannot maintain the correct tone throughout the letter, your vocabulary is not strong enough. You're not flexible with your words. And obviously, that's something you need to work on. If tone is something you struggle with, and for many people it is, there's a separate video on that topic, and I strongly recommend you watch it. Another common problem is doing things that nobody asked you to do. Sometimes students misread the situation and include completely irrelevant information. For example, the task asks you to suggest improvements to a college library, and you start complaining about the cafeteria. Like nobody asked you about the cafeteria. You're going off topic. Or the task asks you to request a room change, and you write a letter asking for a refund. Now, you cannot play with these things. If the task asks you to request a room change, you request a room change, nothing else. Put yourself into the situation and write exactly what you are asked to write. Do not go off topic and do not invent things, please. A very common problem at band 5 and band 6 is insufficient or poor detail. The bullet points give you structure, but the development of ideas is your responsibility. You need to expand them with your own ideas. This is where you get to be creative. If you write only 150 words, you almost certainly haven't developed the letter properly. In most cases, you need a minimum of 180 words to write a coherent letter. Each bullet point should be expanded with at least a couple of supporting sentences. If the task says, for example, explain why you need time off, don't just write one sentence and stop. Explain what's happening, give some context, tell a little story. And at the same time, don't write very long letters. If you go over 200 words, you're probably spending too much time on task one and losing time for task two, which, by the way, gives you more points than the first one. Another common way students lose points is through careless, basic, stupid language mistakes like missing articles. For example, I want refund instead of I want a refund. Or forgetting plural S. For example, writing to book instead of two books. Punctuation errors also add up. Missing commas, missing full stops, writing I with a lowercase letter is another thing I sometimes see. Like, seriously, come on. These are not small details. A full stop at the end of a sentence and a capital I are fundamental elements of written English. That's why proofreading is not optional. You must leave yourself a couple of minutes to read your letter again and check these little things. That's also why we practice under timed exam conditions, so you can manage your time and still proofread properly. So, just to summarize, cover all bullet points, don't miss any, and pay attention to plurals. Make sure each bullet point is covered equally. Always include a greeting and a sign off, and make sure they are appropriate. Your tone must be consistent from start to finish. Don't play with this. Don't do things you're not asked to do. Don't go off topic. Develop the bullet points properly. And 150 words is never enough. And finally, please don't lose points for careless mistakes like missing plurals, missing full stops, or basic spelling errors. So these are your warning signs, your red flags to keep in mind when preparing for IELTS general training writing task 1. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.